Welcome to East Coast Bias. Three guys love a bunch of different East Coast sports teams that we discuss in depth on this show. I'm your co-host Christian, along with my co-hosts Jack and Dan. Today we'll be discussing, as always, Giants and Eagles recap. Look forward to this week's game, and we'll get into college football, Big Ten play, and preview the Notre Dame Clemson All-Star matchup this weekend. Boys, how's everybody doing tonight? Good.
Calm about the future of the nation, and ready to talk about the horrific state of the New York Jets.
All right. Well, before we get into the Jets, let's start with the Giants. Dan, I came away with really mixed feelings. So the Buccaneers are, one of the five best teams in the NFL. And I thought the Giants clearly outplayed them. And if not for a couple of atrocious officiating calls in the final 5 minutes, there's about three different ways they win that game. What do you think?
I agree with you. I don't know about clearly outplayed. I think there were stretches where it was mainly the first half where they easily outplayed Tampa Bay. Although I'll in a couple minutes I'll give some kudos to the offense. It was a defensive driven effort. Look, Tampa Bay was a little shorthanded off of the full complement of wide receivers they expect to have this week with Godwin coming back and Antonio Brown in the mix.
Yeah, but let's not make excuses. We're playing without Saquon Barkley, our whole team.
We're playing without Saquon Barkley, and now we're playing without
out for the year. Right.
The defensive backfield is getting banged up from the terrible that they were already starting with.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really is a credit to Patrick Graham. This guy is a good coach. Can he coach a top 10 unit? Well, let's give him some players and see if he can coach a top 10 unit. The Giants are about middle of the league statistically in terms of defense. But this guy schemes the hell out of a bunch of no-namers.
Yeah.
And really, with personnel changes, it almost looks like a line change in hockey, the way they have rotations of groups coming in and going out, change of personnel. It was really impressive how they used those personnel groupings and changes to create different looks that confused the heck out of Tom Brady. They benefited a little bit from Tom Brady's old man noodle arm.
Yeah. Sure.
But they certainly confused the heck out of him.
He's been carving everyone else up with that.
It's true. Beating everybody else.
He's been successful. They've had some success running the ball, but the Giants got key turnovers. They were able to get some what I would describe as coverage sacks, even though they were getting okay pressure. I wouldn't call it great pressure, but it was all scheme on defense. And I think
good coach. I'm starting to worry we're going to lose him after this season to a head coaching job.
It's a positive. It's certainly a possibility.
I wouldn't bet on it, but he's definitely going to get some interviews. He can coach.
He definitely can. He's a minority candidate, which a lot of teams I think are going to be looking for in these upcoming cycles to get some of these minority candidates in for serious, legitimate looks. And Patrick Graham,
absolutely, he should be on people's list for sure.
He's earned it. They overachieve. They're not ultimately successful because of personnel, and it's not Graham's fault. It's Dave Gettleman's fault. Mismatches are too easily identified, and teams can convert first downs and get touchdowns in the red zone when they need to by just identifying either the Giants' second cornerback du jour or some other type of mismatch in the defensive backfield or amongst the linebackers. But
let me say on that, you said, I don't want to, before you go off, because you said something about no names on defense. Let me say this. Leonard Williams is having a hell of a season.
It really is.
And I make that trade 10 times out of 10 at this point. Because Dave Gettleman would have picked some third rounder who already would have been cut.
I think
Leonard Williams, after Bradbury, Martinez, he's up there for the second or third best player on the defense. No questions asked. I mean, he is the guy. I mean, we knew he could play the run. He's a premier run defender, but he's getting some pressure on the quarterback this year.
Look, he's a good player, and I think he gets unfairly maligned because of the ill-advised trade. But I think the problem with
he shouldn't have been the number 4 overall pick. Leonard Williams,
but that's not the Giants' problem.
Drafted in the 3rd round and then played like this, you'd be talking about a home run pick.
Right.
Yeah, but
I'll say this: Leonard Williams is playing better, is having a better season at least than Quinnen Williams is right now.
Yeah,
he's having a good year.
Coaching, I think that's Graham.
you can't take it away from him, but he's not Aaron Donald. He doesn't deserve.
No,
He's also
I'm not-
getting
I'm not
maligned
saying
because
that.
of
I'm
his
just
pay.
saying.
No,
I'm just saying we killed the trade at
who I
the
loved
time.
coming out of college.
I make
And-
that trade 10 times out of 10.
I don't think so, because they've got other guys, and that's where they were stacked, and they have guys that can maybe not match that production, but give you the same type of production at much less salaries. I mean, Dalvin
But one of the
Tomlinson is a
reasons
good
their
player.
defense is,
Well, they
is
took Dexter
playing
Lawrence
so
after
well,
that.
way above. It's the collective, much better than the parts, right? Is because the defensive line is so good against the run. And
It's
that's because of Leonard.
I can't disagree with you, but it's
Look, I'm
not
not saying I don't
it's
wanna
not
give him a
singularly because of
long-term
him.
deal
It's
or
because
anything
of
like
Leonard
that.
Williams.
But we got to
It's
call the
because
guy
of Leonard
out for playing
Williams.
well.
He's playing well. I still don't think he should be on the team, but at least he's playing well. Good for him, because I don't get the feeling he's going to be here next year.
He's too old to be part of the rebuild. I'll say this.
I think Dalvin
Well,
Tomlinson
like
will be back,
25.
but
I know. I'll say this. I bunkered down on Sunday and just pretty much watched. So I actually watched every second of the Giants game. So I watched the game.
Monday, you
and
mean.
then I'm sorry, Monday. And then Tuesday's Star Ledger, I saw a couple articles, one calling for him, one saying the Giants need to go get Justin Fields when they ended up with the second pick, and another saying that he needed to be benched. Danny Dimes needed to be benched now. So I thought that the only reason the Giants were in that game, I thought, was that Danny Dimes did just enough to keep him in it. I mean,
but the problem with him, it's the same note with him every time.
That was one play. I mean, obviously the 2-pointer, if that throw is on the right shoulder and on time, that's good. And that's on him for making a poor throw. But up until that point, he wasn't terrible. I mean, he's the one that hung with Brady.
You hit upon my mixed emotions from the game. I was disappointed in how Daniel Jones played. I think everything else was a positive. I was disappointed. He missed some clear deep balls where guys were open. I think some of that is just our wide receivers are so bad they can't adjust the balls in the air. But there were some passes he should have hit on the field. The 2 interceptions were a killer. But what still gives me a glimmer of hope about Daniel Jones is when a guy's not going to make it, he's just throwing the ball to the other team. The only time Jones throws interceptions is when he's got 3 guys hanging on him and he tries to make a throw and he just gets hit and the ball goes up in the air. It's not like he made the wrong read or he threw the ball where he wanted to and just missed. It's just poor decision making. I know that's half the battle of playing the job, but that gives me a glimmer of hope. But I was disappointed by how he played. But I'll say this: I mean, you look at his QBR. This is his worst game in a while. I thought he still had a 62 QBR, which is, well above average. And his QBR in the previous 2 games, 85.7 and 80. QBR at 75 is Pro Bowl.
Look around the league. Look who else starts in this league. Yeah, I mean, he's as good an option as you have.
The talk about benching him is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I know I kind of alluded to it.
Papers when the teteam's won in 7.
I assume so.
I think you're probably right about that, but it's ridiculous, especially this week when he's 3-0 against the Washington football team in his career. This is a confidence booster for Daniel Jones because this is the only team he's really proven he could beat in the NFL. So why are you going to bench him? Threaten to bench him in this game.
He should have been, but at this point, I'll tell you this: I'm certainly taking Trevor Lawrence. I don't think the Giants are going to have the first pick.
Yeah, the first.
Lawrence. Right. I'm not sold on taking Justin Fields.
I agree with you.
And we'll talk about Justin Fields. I mean, tremendous college player, probably the overwhelming favorite to win the Heisman at this point. But we see it with Dwayne Haskins, and he's a far better prospect and a better player than Dwayne Haskins is. But the guys, he's just throwing to wide open wide receivers all day, every day. And that's what Haskins did.
Well, we'll talk about the Penn State secondary later, too, because that's
but that's everyone. I mean, you look at Haskins.
True, but
Haskins completed
Penn State's supposed to be better than that.
Passes. So I'd be concerned about that, but I would not draft a quarterback at this point unless it's Trevor Lawrence. I still think Daniel Jones, he gets another year in my book.
100%.
What I was also disappointed in is you go back to the Eagles game and he's running the ball all over the place And this week he doesn't run at all.
They don't call
This
anything for him.
is my
Why?
point, and I've said this before in previous weeks. I don't know what Jason Garrett is looking at. They're not scheming the offense to give him the best chance of success. He has success when they're running the ball. I understand you don't want to overexpose him or get him hit all the time, but they don't run him enough, or at least threaten on those zone reads to get him out in space and let him use that speed, because as we've seen, he's really fast when he gets
Fast as
going.
hell. He's as fast as any quarterback in the league.
And another problem is, look at the success that the Giants had against Tampa Bay, who have a really good top 5 defense so far
Tremendous
this year. And he was picking them apart at regular intervals.
Yeah.
What was the key, in my opinion? Something that I've harped on before in previous weeks: pace. The Giants worked at a way better pace this week than they have the entire season. They ran 69 total plays, a very nice number. 69 total plays, above league average in terms of plays per game. They looked a lot better when they were moving no huddle and moving to snap the ball quickly. There were a few moments of when they ran the molasses slow stuff, and I guess I can't escape that. But I really can't complain with 69 total plays in the game. I really think that's what drove his success. So I don't understand why they don't run him more often and run a faster pace, maybe break out a no huddle outside of a 2-minute situation, just run a drive with a no huddle grouping. It's just, Jason Garrett is just not a very good offensive coach. And I know I'm not breaking ground by saying that,
But I will say, I didn't like that they didn't run the ball, but I loved the rest of the game plan from Garrett. I thought it was a tremendous game plan. And I look at the box score, and Shepard, Ingram, and Slayton had 30 of the 41 targets. That's what I want to see every week.
But where has this been? Why haven't they done this in previous weeks?
Well, I know. Well, give him credit for getting it right this week. But I agree with you. I mean, we've got to keep seeing it. Now, this week, I want to see Jones run the ball, and I want to see those 3 get.
I'm not giving him credit, because I'll tell you what. They're 1-7. It's week 9 at this particular point. This division sucks. You know what? The team isn't that great, but the defense is good enough to keep them in games. It's not a world beater. It's not a great defense, but they're good enough to keep them in games. They could have won 4 games if they would have quickened up the pace and given Daniel Jones a chance.
Look, they have
turnovers and all. They could have won some of those.
They had every chance to win this one.
All the other games they lost. This game, this was taken by the refs. This game, I was outraged.
See, my problem with that is that's a play that Daniel Jones has consistently proven he cannot make that.
That's third. The most egregious call was the one that led to the touchdown. Was the Isaac Yiadom just making a tackle 15 yards?
With the targeting ball, right?
Yeah, where the guy put his head right into it.
Player, and they give him a 15-yarder that put the Buccaneers inside the 10.
Can an offensive player not be called for leading with the head? Because I
think they can. I believe they can.
I felt like the ball carrier is the one who actually led with the crown going.
And initiated contact.
It was his moving towards the other, not the 2 of them moving towards each.
That was the most egregious call. The second most egregious call was the one that gave him the field goal. Was the 3rd down ridiculous pass interference on Logan Ryan when what's his name Mike Evans just bear hugged him, and somehow they called pass interference and bailed him out, and then they didn't gain another yard, but that put him in field. So take away that field goal, Giants still win on the go-ahead touchdown. And then the 2-point conversion, that's a bad call. That was pass interference. I don't put that in the egregious category, but the first 2 that gave the Buccaneers both of those scores when they completely bailed them out were egregious calls.
Look, the final thing I'll say about Daniel Jones, and I'll build up to where I was talking about that 2-point conversion play. I'm not stepping out of bounds by saying he's too inconsistent. Obviously, the turnovers are a huge issue. I agree with you, Christian, on your diagnosis of the types of plays where he's at least creating a lot of the interceptions. Fumbles, maybe not so much of an issue this year, but still an issue. He doesn't really seem to throw well deep outside of the numbers. That's where I'll differ with you, where you're saying the wide receivers didn't seem to be on the same page. I don't agree that the wide receivers are bad. And they definitely weren't bad in that game against the Buccaneers. I mean, he was missing guys that were running free deep with nobody within 5 yards of them. And he just wasn't even looking at that side
Yeah,
of
but
the
the
field.
first one was on Slayton because the announcers even called him out and said it looked like Slayton didn't see the ball. That should have been a touchdown. But I agree with you. No, he missed throws. He missed throws. There's no doubt about it. He did not. But I'm saying he didn't play a great game. He still had a 63 QBR. That's what I mean. We can win games with Daniel Jones.
Listen,
Yeah. My last point is just a real quick, Jack, just to finish off about the throw on the 2-point conversion. That's a play that he's made or attempted to make to Evan Engram. Very similar type of throw running out. This year, I can think of 2 times. Last year, I think maybe 2 or 3 times. And he has consistently proven that through all this time, multiple coaching staffs, he just cannot read that play fast enough and make that throw fast enough when that guy is wide open coming out of his break. So that's a throw he just has proven he cannot make.
That was a bad throw. No doubt about it. That was a bad throw.
But don't call that play too, Jason Garrett.
You know, the guy, Deion Lewis was wide open. That was not a bad play call.
But if you know the guy's
they got the man coverage they were looking for.
I mean, he was open, but he was the only option. So if he didn't get it there, what else was he going to do? But I'll just say
that's a man beater. That's a play for there. I don't think it was a bad
supposed to work, and it did. You know, as a non-Giant fan, there are a lot of quarterbacks that can throw it far, and you know, there are a lot of quarterbacks that can run very, very fast, and rarely do you find someone who's capable of doing both, even if their accuracy is not great. I mean, I did not realize what a good athlete Daniel Jones is. I mean, he is, first of all, he's just plain fast, but he's shifty. He can run. He's not just a straight line fast runner. He knows how to make people miss.
No, he's a great athlete.
Yeah, but to combine that with being able to,
he played Billis coached his AAU team because he played with Billis's son. Billis said, you know, I forget however many teams are in the ACC. Let's say there's 10. He said that Daniel Jones could have started ACC basketball at like 6 of the 10 teams in the ACC. He was that good at basketball.
So, well, being able to do that and then throw a ball 65 yards and sometimes get it to the receiver. If you can't figure out a way to win with a guy with that much talent in both ways, some of that's on we'll start with the offensive coordinator. Because I think Joe Judge has done a not terrible job.
Yeah, Judge, I like Judge.
The record does not, I don't feel like the record reflects the small amount of progress the Giants seem to be making organizationally.
I agree with you on Joe Judge. I think the Golden Tate situation that emerged today, where Golden Tate was told to stay home, they tried to trade him apparently ahead of the deadline, but couldn't get a price that was to their liking. It's going to be interesting to see how Judge deals with the fallout. I agree with you; he's done a really good job so far. Players seem to certainly respect him, and if I can say. Dave Gettleman, not that he really would have had much to say, has been a complete no-show this entire week for the trade deadline. I think usually in the bye weeks, the Giants make those guys available to talk to the press, but Gettleman has been missing this year. And unlike Pat Shurmur, who seemed to be thrown into the spotlight and made to answer for Dave Gettleman's personnel, roster management,
foibles,
and didn't really seem very comfortable with that. Joe Judge seems like he kind of sees control of the whole situation and is just basically taking ownership of the entire team. And in my opinion, has almost made Dave Gettleman irrelevant. Look, They're not good. I'm sure Dave Gettleman, he really needs to answer a lot of these questions. But Judge has really kind of taken that vacuum of space created by the lack of Gettleman and filled it with himself and done it pretty well. He's great in front of the press.
So put one person in charge.
And Daniel Jones will definitely be here next year. So there's no use in benching him or doing any of these stupid tactics to try and get him play better. He's just got to be out there and get more exposure and try to learn to get these stupid mistakes out of his head.
Right. He's in his third season, right?
He will be in his third season next year. Yeah.
Oh, he's only
no way he's not going to be the starting quarterback.
Okay, of course not. Okay. So he's nowhere even near the.
No.
Right.
No, he's definitely going to be the starting quarterback.
The only way he's not is if they somehow get the first.
They somehow get the first pick. Right.
Yeah.
If they had,
and even then, I don't.
It'll definitely be a conversation. It'll be you have to have the conversation. Let's see what Fields does the rest of the year, but I'm not sure they're gonna have the second pick either. But but we'll see what happens this weekend. And let me say, I've been slamming Sterling Shepard a lot on this show, but he played great. He looked really good. He finally looked healthy. He looked quick. He looked like the Sterling Shepard of old. So, they targeted
He's a
him
good
10
receiver.
times.
He's a good receiver. He just can't stay healthy.
I didn't think any of them popped for me on Sunday. They were
Sterling
they
Shepard
got a lot of targets.
He's a maybe number 2. He should be a number 3 wide receiver, but he's their number 2 wide receiver.
And can I get also want to get in my Wayne Gallman? Why is Wayne Gallman sharing the backfield with the carcass of Alfred Morris, called up from the practice squad, and getting something like, I don't think he even got 50% of the carry of the snaps, but he got something like 8 carries.
12 carries for Gallman, 8 carries for Morris.
Right. Ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Just
Matos,
give Wayne Gallman a chance.
He did have a nice 10-yard run, but I agree.
That's okay.
Gallman, his average wasn't great. It was in the high 3s, but he had a couple runs where he was hit right at the line of scrimmage.
He looked a hell of a lot better than Morris did carry for carry.
No, Gallman looks good. I think I'm with you. I think even if Freeman can play this week, I
don't think Freeman's coming back this week. He hasn't practiced yet.
Give Gallman 20 carries and see what he can do.
What do you got to lose? He looks pretty good. He's not fumbling like he was previously in his career, which was his big issue.
Matos,
give the guy a chance.
You're leaving out the highlight of the stat sheet for the Giants this week. Who caught a ball for 11 yards?
Yeah, I think it was one of his 4 snaps that they actually gave him the ball. He ran it for like 10 yards.
I think Garrett
Penny.
I think Garrett may be watching our show because not only
they're not giving him enough snaps. They're still only giving him like 5 snaps.
But I'm saying
they threw him the ball though.
They threw him the ball, and then you added the Tololo watch last week, and they threw him the ball.
And they threw him the ball.
Now Tololo, I mean, so
yeah. Well, all right, Jason Garrett, if you're watching the show, more plays per game. Run Wayne Gallman.
Run Daniel Jones.
And run Daniel Jones. You got it.
And run Daniel Jones, and keep throwing the ball deep. Keep throwing the ball deep. Don't stop.
Can I ask a question though? What sort of coaching is it if you have Evan Engram and Caden Smith that you're calling plays where you actively want the quarterback to look Tololo's way? Like, I understand him as a blocker or maybe even on the goal line, but like in the middle of the field, why in God's name in the NFL would you ever go out of your way to design plays for the third tight end?
Why did they sign Levine Toilolo? Why is he even on this team?
I understand having a third tight end for injury reasons and to serve as a blocker for jumbo stuff, but it just seems strange to me to have him out there running patterns at the 40 when you've got the others two. Why do you have the other 2 guys?
His presence on this team is confounding in and of itself. So I guess add to the misery, so to speak.
Yeah, and that stupid play they run down the goal line where Jones is looking out wide, rolling to his right, looking wide, and he tries to throw back to Caden Smith in the middle of the field. Stop running that play.
Yeah, that play is not great.
Almost been picked off every time.
I think there were about 10 guys in the middle of that play. I cringed when he threw it.
It actually hit Caden Smith in the chest, and he just dropped it. But there were so many guys around; it should have been picked off because he dropped it. Stop running that play. That's a stupid play.
You know who ran that play for his very first NFL play? Got picked and run back 20 yards for a touchdown? Sam Darnold. They ran that. Everybody go right.
He absolute horrible play.
Got picked and returned for a touchdown.
Back into the middle of the field is a horrible play. Stop doing it.
Yeah.
But also, let me say, one of my on my mixed emotions scale on the sad side was watching my man Antoine Winfield Jr. play. God, the Giants should have drafted him.
100%.
He is so good.
Big whiff.
It's your classic. Oh, he's so small and he's not fast enough. But yeah, he was a tremendous player in college, and he's a tremendous player in the NFL.
Always take the kid of the pro. They're all 9 times out of 10, they're good.
Damn.
Big mistake. The Giants really missed a big opportunity by not drafting Winfield.
They had DeAndre Baker. That's why.
No, they drafted McKinney over Winfield. That's what they did.
The only caveat.
Who knows what McKinney could be, but he ain't playing right now.
He's a pretty damn good player, though, to match what Winfield's done.
That is
100. I agree with you. And then also the Giants, the second one would be the Giants whiffed on many opportunities to draft an actual center, although Nick Cates has been better, but not great.
Well, while we're there, let's also give a big shout out to our man Andrew Thomas, who had a tremendous game.
Offensive line looked
really
decent.
good defensive line. So you have to hope the game's slowing down for him a bit. He played great, and Parrott got some playing time at right tackle, and he looked pretty good again.
And Hernandez did not play, correct?
Correct.
Who-
Shane
So
Lemieux, another rookie, played in his place.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I'm now wondering
Maybe if it was Hernandez's problem.
if he is having a trouble playing next to Hernandez and they just can't get on the same page.
Right.
Because that's the only thing that changed is Shane Lemieux went in, and all of a sudden Andrew Thomas looks like the number 4 overall pick against a really good defensive line.
Play the 2 rookies, play Pert at right tackle, and then move when Solder comes back, move him to right guard and draft the center, and there your offensive line's rebuilt.
They tried to trade Zeitler too, because I guess they were that encouraged by Lemieux. Maybe they thought they were going to plug him in at right guard when Hernandez came back, but that never came to
Both Zeitler and Solder are guaranteed to be cut.
I mean, even the Jets couldn't get a sale off. We sold a couple parts for 6th-round picks. That's it.
I don't think they can cut either guy because their salaries are so high. It's going to be so much dead money.
Nah,
Zeitler, Dave loves that shit.
Zeitler they can cut, and then they can do that. I all these years of watching, I still don't understand how it works. But if they do I was reading they do the post July 1 on Solder, the money is not
That's money. Yeah.
They won't be able to spend in a free agency, but they'll still cut them.
Right. It doesn't count as much against the cap. You don't get it back, but it doesn't hurt as much.
It rolls over to the next year or something. And Jabril Peppers. Jabril, my man.
He actually looked good in coverage. Holy shit. It was unbelievable.
Good.
He's a very good tackler, but the problem is he's always tackling people 7 yards past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
At the second, third level.
And at one point I saw him running off the field late, making a substitution, and he did a somersault off the field and into the sideline.
Yeah, I wish he would stop doing
it. He was trying to get out of the play, so they didn't get a 12 men on the field penalty on defense. And to make up that extra time is like the slide into first base. I don't know if it really helped him out, but he did a somersault off of the field and into the sideline area.
Yeah. All right. So before we move on, Jets, let's just talk about this weekend. Washington football team. All right. We talked a lot about moral victories, and I do believe this was a moral victory. They should have won the game against one of the best teams in the NFL this weekend.
Where is the game this weekend? Forgive me for not knowing.
At FedEx.
It's at FedEx. It's at Hell. It's at Hell in Maryland.
Yes.
They got to come out and they got to pound the Washington football team. They got to win this game convincingly. I don't want any, overtime win. I don't want a 1-point loss. You got to put it all together now. They're the better team. They have far more talent than Washington, aside from Chase Young. You got to come out and you got to win this game convincingly, Joe Judge. Show us what you got. We believe in you, but you got to put it together this weekend.
Washington coming off a bye. They lost Landon Collins for the season, so
which actually might be a plus,
their defense. But it might work out well. I think it's going to work out well for the Giants. They can still get after the quarterback. I'm a little worried about that. The potential for turnovers, fumbles from.
Although our man Carter Coughlin, Dave Gettleman's 6th-round pick or 7th-round pick. Congratulations.
Coughlin and Cam Brown look good in limited snaps.
Yeah, Coughlin and our man Cam Brown both looking good.
One thing that concerns me is James Bradbury did not have a very good game against Tampa Bay. He's had mixed results historically, going 1-on-1 against Mike Evans, which is what the Giants did.
He had 7 good weeks in a row.
I'm a little concerned about McLaurin busting loose, and maybe this hopefully doesn't turn into something of a bad slide
that's
for
why
James Bradbury. But
we say, Patrick, hey man, we love you. You scheme the hell out of this team. They got one player. Double team them on every single play. They have literally nobody else.
I'm concerned that Logan Thomas, who scored a touchdown in the first matchup, can bust out against the safeties. Because like I said, now Colbert is out for the year. Giants really going to need to scheme it together on the safety side because they're hurting there. But I'm just concerned about that. I'll be looking to see if Bradbury has a good comeback game. If he does, I think the Giants can win.
Well, I'm saying it can win. I'm saying right now, if they don't win this game convincingly, we're coming on here, or at least I am coming on here next week, and I'm blasting Joe Judge. You have to win this game.
You like him this week, not so much next week. I think the Giants win by a field goal. I'll say 2017, something like that. I think both teams play terribly. I think they play down to each other. I think Daniel Jones is a little bit better than Kyle Allen, and I think that the best coach on the field will be the Giants' defensive coordinator, and he'll manage to help the Giants pull that out.
All right. Well, we shall see what happens.
I'll agree with. I like a
No home
21-17, 20-17, something like that. Another low-scoring game. What was it, 19-20 was the last one. I think it's going to be something very similar to that. So I concur.
I want a 31-14 convincing victory.
Let's see. It's not like there's any home field
from the team that scores under 19 points a game, the New York Giants.
Yeah, but they're trending in the right direction. That's what I'm saying. You got to keep going. Keep it going. Get better every week.
Jason Garrett runs.
But that's what I'm saying. If Joe Judge is really good coach, it's got to keep going.
Right.
He's got to get in Jason Garrett's ear and say, we need more plays.
Man, Giants might be able to make some noise next year.
Daniel Jones owns the Washington football team, so he's due.
It doesn't make any sense to bench him against a team he's 3-0 against in his career.
Christian, as a man who knows things about the DMV area, where will the next Washington football team stadium end up? Because they're going to get a new stadium at some point, right? It's not going to stay in Landover, Maryland.
I think they'll stay in Maryland.
Really?
Yeah, probably. That's who knows. Hope they go back to DC. That'd be cool, but we shall see.
Let's go back to the RFK site.
All right. So this weekend, we all like the Giants. We'll see what happens there. Jack, did the Jets cover?
They did not cover.
They did not.
35-9. So that's 24. I believe the line was
another touchdownless game for the Jets.
Started at 19 and a half and ended at 22, something like that. So they did not cover. Just the Chiefs just covered. What did we learn this week? Le'Veon Bell may not be good, so that made the Jets feel a little bit better. He did not look good at all.
So much for that revenge game there.
Right, exactly. You'd think he was going to use that to destroy them. Other than that, not much to say. They gave Frank Gore a bunch of carries again. 38-year-old running back got 10 carries in the game. Denzel Mims looks very athletic and looks like an NFL receiver. So they went to him twice right away for 42 yards, a long of 29. And then for the rest of the game, he got one more target after that. Braxton Berrios got 11 targets. His first 5 catches went for a total of 9 yards. I didn't even know that was possible in an NFL game. So there weren't a lot of offensive highlights. The defense obviously didn't do anything to speak of. The Chiefs offense did whatever they want. The score could have been worse. It felt worse than that. And the Jets are, if you look at the schedule, find a game you think they have a chance at, unless you think the Browns have clinched a playoff spot already, or they're going to get some sort of Cuyahoga River curse coming back on them. The Jets are probably headed for 0-16 and Trevor Lawrence and a new head coach and a total rebuild and reset. I will say that Joe Douglas did do his trading. He actually did a press conference for the trading deadline, and he took almost all the blame and put it on himself, and even talked about how he screwed up on Robbie Anderson specifically. And people freaked out when they asked him about Adam Gase, and he said, "Hey, I don't think Adam Gase is part of the problem. He's our coach, and I think he's a good coach."
What's he gonna say?
That's right. He's not his boss. He has no say over it.
I mean, even if he was, what's he gonna say? Actually, guys, I'm planning to fire him next week.
Right, exactly. But it's not even his call. He can't even say that. It's the Johnsons make that decision. Yeah. So I don't know why people. Of course, he said that he's being a good soldier for the organization. So they're set up well.
They're gonna have a job.
They're gonna have the first pick. They're gonna have the Seahawks first pick. And then they're going to have the first pick of the second round. So they'll pick 3 times in the first 33.
Good spot to me in.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that just feels like you could, Trevor Lawrence with the first pick. One of the 2 tight ends, I think either Pitts or Freiermuth, are both headed to NFL stardom. I think Pitts is going to go watch. By the end of the season, I think Pitts ends up going super high, top 15. And then the best receiver on the board, maybe Devontae Smith from Alabama, is still there. It's something at the first round of the second pick. You know what I mean? You could turn around an offense pretty quickly with picks like that. Problem is the offensive line. You do that in free agency. So there's a way to do this. again, I trust Joe Douglas. I don't think we're going anywhere with Adam Gase. And Quinnen Williams did pick up another roughing the passer penalty this week. I believe it might be his 6th of the season.
Ooh.
They got to get him to stop doing that.
Ooh. Bad tendency there.
Yeah. So, but they got to see Eric Bieniemy up close. If he's one of the candidates for the Jets coaching job, they certainly experienced. They got the Bieniemy experience this weekend. I still think that Joe Brady. I got my crushes on Joe Brady now, but we shall see.
I'm not so sure about that. I know they played on Thursday night, and it was a little rainy as I recall. But for playing against the Atlanta Falcons, boy, the Panthers really shit the bed last Thursday night. So Joe Brady can't light up that bad defense.
No first-time coach.
I know you're right.
Into that mess.
They got to get somebody to take this job first. That's the other thing.
If you have Trevor Lawrence, people are going to be beating the door down to get the job. That's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, if they end up number 1, it'll be a very desirable job.
I don't know. This has quickly become the sort of job you take to get fired from.
Yeah, but not with Trevor Lawrence.
Like Daniel Snyder's executive assistant, the job you take to cry and get fired.
I mean, if they end up with number 1 pick, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, you got to be going after. I mean, I can't even think of someone that's available.
Right. I mean, who's sensibly available that would take this job that's not over the hill?
I mean, a big-time college coach or.
Right. But Ryan Day's young. He hasn't done that much yet. Bob Stoops has been out of the game for a while. Who else is legitimately? David Shaw went 4-8 last year. Chris Peterson retired. Brian Kelly screams too much to be an NFL coach.
Yeah, I don't know who it is.
If they could get Dabo Swinney, get Dabo Swinney. I believe in that. If you can get Dabo Swinney and Trevor Lawrence here, I would try that.
Be interesting, that's for sure.
It would be interesting, but think how, if you want a freshman rookie quarterback to get off to a good start, bring his head coach and father figure with them.
Yeah.
But we shall see. We shall see.
Speaking of deserving or running backs, maybe not deserving, but running backs who deserve a shot. I know you mentioned Frank Gore, ancient Frank Gore getting all those carries for the Jets. Increasing role for LaMichael Pirine over the last couple of weeks. Are they going to give him a legit shot to be the starting running back? Or at least the lead dog?
I don't think that Joe Douglas had. I think Joe Douglas ignored Adam Gase for the most part on draft day, but I don't think Joe Douglas had 100% full player personnel power. I think the ownership box has some say, and they're supposed to listen. I just can't tell for the life of me whether Pirine was a Douglas pick or a Gase pick. It seems like it was a Douglas pick, right? Because Gase has gone completely out of his way. But why would Gase, knowing that his job is in jeopardy, actively, you know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense.
Not let the guy have a shot, or at least put the guy back there and see what he can do.
So, no, it feels like he's getting lost in the shuffle, and you damn well know that if Travis Etienne is available with the first pick of the second round in next year's draft, they're going to scoop him up, especially if they've just taken Lawrence with the first pick. So is that job his to lose? No. It's his to try and win, depending on who they draft.
Also, shout out to Avery Williamson, who goes from the outhouse to the penthouse, despite the fact that he's injured. I believe he expressed his glee on Instagram, I think it was, about how excited he was to go from the Jets to the Steelers. But, man, talk about trading up in the world.
We traded Avery Williamson and a 7th rounder for a 6th rounder. We had to give up a pick.
Well, he's currently hurt. He's not even playing, is he?
We had to throw in a 7th rounder to get a 6th back just to sweeten it. He wasn't enough. Ridiculous.
Good for him, though.
So,
well, another week of Jets football.
Yeah.
Who they got this week? The Patriots, right?
They do. Monday night against the Patriots.
Oh, a nice Monday night special.
I think we know that the Patriots are going to get right by the Jets on Monday night. The Jets don't play well on the big stage. Again, just not enough talent to compete in the NFL right now. Right. The only thing the Jets could do at this point to fuck this up is win a game and somehow lose the first pick to the Giants or somebody else. That would be the absolute most Jetsian thing to do. would
The
be
Patriots are
to
lost
win.
at sea right now too. So
So what do you think? I can't tell. If the Jets have the second pick, do you take Justin Fields or do you trade out for a bounty? I have no idea. Who knows?
I
got to see how Darnold plays the rest of the
yeah.
year.
I think we know the answer to that, but yes, we'll see what he
They
does.
probably take Fields, but
Right?
not a lot.
I think the same thing. Speaking of, shall we talk about the Big Ten?
Yeah. So
Let's go there.
Justin Fields, Buckeyes knock off the Nittany Lions 38-25. Makes it almost seem closer than it was, that score. But you mentioned Justin Fields, difference in the game, a couple of differences, but number one difference for me, Justin Fields puts up an almost perfect QBR, which I'm not sure I've ever seen before. I believe the way he had 98 QBRs. I believe the way that works is
he was
the
great.
team is supposed to win 98% of the time if your quarterback plays that well. And Sean Clifford had a 50, which is just average and even less than average in college football. Everyone puts up good numbers. And that was the biggest difference. And then, just line play. I don't know whether there is Ohio State. They're just far and away a better team than Penn State. It wasn't as close, which is odd because we thought Penn State, has their most talented team in years, and yet they have not been blown out by Ohio State in a long time, and yet they get blown out this year.
I thought that Penn State played okay to good enough to compete and keep it close, except in one place. That secondary is absolutely horrendous. Just horrendous. They should be playing right now for Miami of Ohio. I mean, Lamont Wade was.
Yeah, I don't think they're hurt. I mean, I think Lamont Wade.
Ohio State's really good, but that secondary didn't do themselves any favors. They didn't make a single play the entire game.
You want to talk about? I mentioned with the Giants about identifying the mismatch. The mismatch for any team that goes against Penn State is who is lining up across from 38 when we set our wide receivers or line them up against the tight end. Lamont Wade is like he's the bizarro version of that, cliche player that announcers are always talking about, or the type of guy who's always around the ball, making a good play. He's just got a nose for the ball. Lamont Wade is the bizarro version of that. Every time there's a big play being made against Penn State in the passing game, Lamont Wade is front and center, getting beat or running behind somebody for 4 or 5 yards in their dust. He's the mismatch on the field. I'm not really sure what Penn State can do about it. I guess bench him, but I don't know if there's anybody that can really take his place. But he's really killing them because anytime somebody wants to do something against that defense, they just find out who's being covered by Lamont Wade, and let's just hit him.
Yeah, this is where I'm disagree with you guys there because it's a coaching issue. We just spent a whole segment talking about the Giants and how great Patrick Graham is. Lamont Wade is Jabril Peppers light. But with the Giants, they don't ask Jabril Peppers to cover any one-man coverage because he can't do it. And yet this coaching staff continually asks Lamont Wade, who's a small, strong safety, to cover people in man coverage. It makes absolutely no sense. He can't do it. He shouldn't be asked to do it. So, I'm not going to blame him because we know he can't do it. I don't know why they continually put him in that spot. That's poor coaching.
It's a fair point, and a symptom of what really so far for these first 2 weeks has just been an overall poor coaching job by this coaching staff. Franklin, he's known for the.
We lost Dan's little malfunction there, but I'm thinking. To Dan's point on coaching, I didn't understand the game plan. They came in, and Franklin even said in his post-game press conference,
fans and all that other stuff.
Our plan. Hey Dan, we lost you for about a minute there.
Oh, okay.
You're back now.
I
was picked up your point on the coaching staff though, because I did not understand the game plan at all. And Franklin even said after the game, we knew we had to come in, and we knew Sean Clifford running the ball was going to have to be a big part of our game plan. Sean Clifford is an average athlete. at best. Okay, when he gets going, he can run. He's got some straight line speed. Okay, but why in the world would you come in and say, okay, we're going against probably the most athletic defense in the country. They got defensive linemen that can all run faster than Sean Clifford. And yet our game plan is going to be, let's try and run Sean Clifford 20 times and see what happens. That is just a stupid game plan. They're trying to run the same offense they had with Trace McSorley. Sean Clifford is not Trace McSorley. He's not the athlete Trace McSorley is. He doesn't have the quickness. It just doesn't work. I wish at this point, put in Will Levis, who can actually run the ball. If you want to run that offense, put in the running quarterback, but stop trying to make Sean Clifford this running quarterback. And he looked, and I don't know what happened at halftime, because the guy wouldn't throw the ball in the first half. You know, if a guy's not wide open, he refuses to throw the ball. And then second half, he comes out and, hey, look, I got Jahan Dotson over here. Let me just start throwing the ball up to him. And Jahan Dotson
highlight level.
Dotson looked very good, right?
He looked great. And he wasn't open, but they were throwing him the ball.
My diagnosis of it, and I know I got cut off on my larger rant about the overall coaching situation, is Ciarrocca coaches, at least these first 2 weeks, like he doesn't know what he has in these players, which is explainable given that he's had limited exposure to these guys in practice to actually see what these guys can do, and especially with the wide receivers who really haven't put too much on film. So he doesn't know what the wide receivers can do. In the second half, it seemed like he just kind of opened everything up, and the wide receivers kind of made up the rest by showing their talent, chiefly Jahan Dotson. But it seems like he's trying to learn this team on the fly. He coaches really basic. His play calling and sequencing is very formulaic. I agree with you, Christian, that there's too many designed and other quarterback runs. Clifford is not that good of a quarterback. He's way too inconsistent. I understand the devotion to the run game, but Clifford should not be running as often as he is.
Yeah, I mean, Clifford ran the ball.
And if he is, I agree with you, Levis. Yeah, if he is running that much, and I know he had success against Indiana running the ball, breaking out a couple of big runs. But I agree with you. If they're going to run that type of offense, just put Levis out there because he's the better runner of the two.
You know, and then we're talking about, we got these, Ford, I don't know what Ford is. We got to see more of him to figure out if he's a Big Ten running back or not. I think the jury's still out on him, but they didn't even play the other guys.
No,
I couldn't figure that out either.
Didn't get the ball once. Yeah.
We had, Sean Clifford ran the ball almost 20 times, and our running backs, we're talking about, we do a preview show. Oh my God, this is a running back team. It's all about the running backs. Okay, we've lost some guys. Still got talent there. 8 carries for the running backs, 20 carries for our quarterback who can't run.
Yeah,
it just was a stupid game plan. I agree with you, but if you
Clifford
don't know what you have, what you do know what you have in Sean Clifford,
right?
So I'd rather go with the unknown and just chuck the ball all over the field
than try and win it.
Than try and run a slow quarterback against the most athletic defense in the country. Didn't make a lot of sense.
You need to take Clifford's ability to call his own number out of the offense, because he seems like he wants to call his own number as much as Trace McSorley does.
But that's the offense. It's the quarterback read. I mean, by definition, he has to make the call.
He always reads himself. Even if the guy doesn't crash, he reads himself.
Yeah, but you're missing the issue. He's making the right read.
Right, but
if you're coaching, Ohio State, what are you telling your defensive players to do? Crash the running back. We want Clifford to keep the ball. Never go after Clifford. Make him keep the ball. And that's what they're doing. They're crashing the running back every play. It's like we're playing right into their hands. I don't know about Ciarrocca. I don't know. Indiana, that was a tough one. You just got to throw this one out. But, I mean, they better come out and score 60 points this weekend.
It looks like Penn State probably opened with the 2 best teams in the Big Ten.
Right? No, I agree with that. I mean, it definitely got screwed by the schedule. I mean, it's just
Wisconsin's not
unfortunate schedule.
It is what it is, but they're contributing to their own malaise by not being coached very well.
Well, they'll get right this week because they get to play my alma mater.
And well, hey, that's a get right game against that defense. Can they score 60? I don't know. I'll settle for 35 at this particular point, or maybe even 40. Another thing that I noticed on the coaching front, Brent Pry, who's usually the most reliable of the coaching staff, I guess I would say, um, there was a point after Penn State called a timeout early. Penn State came out of the timeout, didn't have enough defensive players on the field, sent somebody running on the field to go line up. He had no idea where he was going. Ohio State, coming out of a timeout, throws right to the middle of the field and scores a touchdown with ease. I don't think the guy was even close to being covered. Completely sloppy.
Yeah.
It sent the game essentially, I think, into a little bit of a mini tailspin where Penn State was going to be very hard for them to recover from that point, although it was hard enough for them to recover from being down 14-0. Just not a very good coaching staff overall by the entire staff this year.
Yeah, no, it was poor. And Jack, I don't totally agree with your analysis on the defense. It's hard to put it on the secondary when Ohio State runs for 200 yards. I mean, Master Teague averaged 5 yards a carry. The backup Sermon averaged 4.5 yards a carry. I mean, they're just running the ball down our throats. It's hard to defend the pass when your defensive line is just getting blown off the ball. I mean, that was the second area. I mean, the most glaring difference was the quarterback play. The second biggest was the trenches. I mean, they just absolutely dominated us on both sides of the ball. It wasn't even close. And our
I don't disagree, but you can
they look terrible. The defensive line looked terrible.
Both lines for the Lions, very disappointing so far.
But you can give up 5 yards a carry and 200 yards and still win a game. You can't if you get burned multiple times on the outside for big plays. And they got burned multiple times. Hey, Ohio State's good. Chris Olave, come on, New York Jets, baby. He looked great.
No, he was good.
They would have done that to anybody. I just thought that the secondary did not give your defense even a chance to be able to hold that down.
Yeah, but it's just a couple big plays. I mean, just nobody played well. We look to this weekend. Like I said, they got to come out. They better come out and score 50 or 60 points against Maryland. We talk about Maryland now as well. I think Maryland's going to score a little bit because, Jack, you slandered.
I did slander the tech.
Left and right, dragged them all over the place on the show last week. I think he's watching too because he looked like Steve Young, his brother, and Aaron Rodgers combined into one quarterback.
Can I say one thing? Minnesota may have the worst defense in the country.
True.
Power 5.
But he's still, I mean, he's a player.
Somebody had to make the plays, and he did. I'm not arguing with that.
He can play. Exactly right. You can just watch guys, and you can tell right away.
He knows what he's doing.
Can't play. He's fast as all heck.
What he appears to know what he's doing, but that doesn't mean he's going to win a bunch of games.
No, I agree, but I think Maryland's got a quarterback. The least of their worries is the quarterback. I think
we know who's going to be the starter for the rest of the year. Yes. So they've got a quarterback, but that defense is just not going to do them any wonders. And Penn State, I don't think they can put up 60. I think that's as much about Penn State's offense as it is about Maryland's defense. But 50 attainable. But they're going to score. I don't think Penn State's going to have any trouble scoring. But let's see. That was a good win for Maryland. I think Minnesota is just that defense is as bad as I said it was. I don't know what their record's going to end up being, but this win may not turn out to be as impressive later as we think it is today. But good for Maryland for winning a game. I thought they were going to go 0-8 with that schedule. It looks like they got a quarterback. Again, the receivers stand out for Maryland. If Maryland could trade their receivers to Penn State for Penn State's tight ends, both teams would be better. But that defense just isn't going to do them any favors. Maryland might be able to pick off another one. Again, the way the teams have looked so far, the Rutgers, Maryland, the needle starts to tilt towards Rutgers from what I can see so far. Unless Leah breaks out and I'm crazy again, and this was the beginning of something, but I don't think he's that good. If he were that good, he wouldn't be in Maryland. I hate to say it. Well, I mean, if he was transferring,
more slander.
I mean, if I'm just saying, there are lots of teams in the Big Ten. He could have gone to Purdue. He didn't. He went to Maryland. Even more people want to play there. Maryland's traditionally a basketball school. So No trouble for Penn State to win this one this weekend. And, we'll see. Mike Loxley. I still don't believe in Mike Loxley, but I was pleased to see them throw it around a little bit. When they score, they're exciting. That's all I care about. I want them to be, at least some of these
entertainment factor.
Yeah, some of these 31-7 slogs, where Northwestern just hands it off 56 times as it's working. I'd rather watch shootouts where Leah throws it all over the field. And if you got good receivers, it makes more sense. And Jake Funk. So Maryland actually set a big record. I didn't realize. The first time they've had a 200-yard rusher and a 200-yard receiver in the same game. Oh, man. Since the 70s. Because Jake Funk out of Gaithersburg, Maryland, who's come back from 2 years worth of knee injury.
Bringing the funk.
Ran for
played at Penn State, probably grew up wanting to play for Penn State. Big game for him this weekend. I'm sure he didn't get a scholarship offer from the
I'm sure he didn't. I think he was first team All-Met in DC, but I don't think he was recruited as a tailback at Penn State. I'm probably going to guess that. So,
all right, before we get the prediction, Dan, during the game, you brought up, is Franklin the right guy? Let's have that discussion. What's your thought on James Franklin at this point?
I have gone around and around on this.
Because I think you were pretty definitive. I think you said something like time to move on.
Yeah, but I circled around on it and I thought about it and I said, for all his faults, he has established something here. I really feel like every year, despite his shortcomings as a coach, they're a quarterback short of taking that next step. And I think they just have to keep grinding to find that right combination.
Right. When they hit the right,
there's no disappointment. Look, there's disappointment when you lose to Ohio State every year. There's disappointment when you lose an opener to Indiana and the fact that they lost that game. He regularly drops games he shouldn't because they have these stupid slow starts all the time. That was a hot take for me. I've come off the ledge on that one. I don't even think he's on the hot seat. I think he should stay because they're really only a quarterback away from taking this next step.
Plus, if you get rid of him,
it's been difficult for him to find a quarterback. I'll give him that, though.
True. But who are you going to get? I always say, if you're going to replace your coach, you're going to replace him with.
We had Justin Fields, and then we lost him. So that would have been a huge difference in this particular game.
Right. That is true. Right. Exactly. One kid decides, and the school he chose to go to isn't even the school he ended up as. An 18-year-old says, I want to go to Georgia instead, ends up at Ohio State. If he's at Penn State, that's probably the difference between the score of last weekend's game, for all we know.
All right.
And who knows? Next year they go
for a good debate, but I no James Franklin.
I changed. I pulled a swerve on that one. I changed my mind in the middle of the week. It doesn't seem right to me. Felt right to me at the time. It doesn't anymore.
Another debate on topic. I'm ready to move on from Sean Clifford at this point.
I agree with you.
I would try. Yeah, I would get time for
that. We got 3 other 4-star quarterbacks that are on the roster.
The third quarterback.
Sean Clifford. He's just not the guy.
No.
He's capable. He's in a regular year.
He's not a Big Ten quarterback.
He's
and if he is, he's a Big Ten quarterback at Purdue or something like that.
9-3. You're gonna go 10-2 in a good year. He's gonna play if he's just okay. He's blah. He's not winning. He's not winning a Big Ten championship. And I'd say I'd be willing to let's move on. Put a freshman in there. Put Levis in there. But I'm more, we got this guy Taquan Robertson from Jersey.
That's the kid.
4-star. Put him in there. I'll take an extra 2 losses this year. I don't care. There's 0 chance that this happens, by the way. But in my perfect world, I would do it and just say, look, we're moving on, Sean. You're just not the guy. You're not the guy that's going to win us a championship. And I'm even more pissed because of this stupid, I guess it's a good rule, but now he's got an even extra year. We know how Franklin loves his guys. And I cannot handle 3 more years of Sean Clifford.
He'll play himself out of the job by that time.
Yeah, he may stay this year, but if they find a better option, they might move on next year.
at least an
And-
open
and-
competition next year, because he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have whatever it is when it comes to quarterbacks.
Who's
in
the
this
true
environment,
If Levis is just the backup, who's the true next guy out of who they have left? Is
I
it
think
Daquan, or is there a younger guy?
I think Saquon, we got, another 4 or 5 star recruit coming in this year, coming in January. But Taquan's the guy. He had he came in a class with another 4-star quarterback who just transferred before the season because Taquan beat him out. So, he's small, he's a little guy, so hopefully he can run. But I'd go to Levis. I'd put Levis in there. I think, Levis is a beast. He's a perfect college quarterback, and he's what they want to do, run the ball. That's what he does. He's 6'5", 240.
Big dude.
Let him run the ball and, run the read option 40 times a game.
yeah.
But there's zero chance of this happening. But it should happen. It's in the best interest of the program. He's not the guy. Just move on and try and find the guy.
Clifford is definitely not the guy.
So what do we think for this weekend? I think Penn State favored by 21. By the way, I gave you the lock of the century. And even last week, I told you to take Ohio State. Hopefully you did it. I told you to take it at 9 when I saw it. I think it got to 12. So even if you got it at 12, Ohio State's still covered. But it was funny because we all listen to our different podcasts and shows. At least 2 other shows that have betting guests on. Two different experts called it their lock of the year. One guy said, called it his bet the mortgage lock of the year, Ohio State covering. So I was not the only one on that who thought that line was crazy. But Penn State this week favored by 21. Jack, what's your prediction for the game?
I'm going right on that number. I didn't even know it was the score. I didn't even know it was the spread. I'm going 42-21. They double up Maryland.
Matos?
I was feeling the 42. I think I may even mentioned that exact number earlier. But I think this has sneaky backdoor cover potential to me. I'm thinking something like a 42-24, 42-27. But a win. Penn State finally gets in the win column.
I'm going to say Penn State wins 48-20. Don't bet on this game. Anyone who's watching, that's a wishful pick for me. I actually don't think Penn State. I'm just so down on them right now. But talent-wise, that should be the score. But let's see if the coaching staff can put it together.
Definitely more talented.
Therein lies the key.
Cover on this show the Rutgers Scarlet Knights' valiant efforts.
Hey,
Come up short. Jack, what are your thoughts on the game?
they covered. Indiana's good. So, Rutgers lost by 16. They didn't play as well as they did the previous week, but it was not a huge drop off. It didn't make it appear that first win was any sort of mirage, especially with Michigan State going to the Big House and beating
Unbelievable.
a week after they get beat by Rutgers.
I said it would be a historic down year for the Spartans. Obviously not, but gotta love it. Anytime Jim Harbaugh loses, gotta love it.
Yeah, they kicked the Wolverines, all right.
But a simple thing, and Shiano's been preaching it since he started there the first time, and he says it now: turnovers. Indiana turned it over 0 times. Rutgers turned it over 3 times. Vedral wasn't nearly as accurate, and he forced a lot of balls this week. 2 of them end up getting picked. 3 of them end up getting picked. But, hey, if losing to a good Big Ten team by 16 is seen as a disappointing weekend, we'll take that. Rutgers is trending up. Unfortunately for them, they get Justin Fields and the Buckeyes this weekend. So there's probably another get right game. Not that Ohio State needs any more getting right, but that's what they'll use it for. But the Rutgers program looks better coached, more talented. The transfers have made a difference. They've chosen a quarterback. And at Matos, as you noticed, they used Langen again in a sort of wildcat package. It's made clear that Vedral's your quarterback and Langen is your wildcat.
Change of pace guy.
And Sikowski is probably transferring in the offseason, I guess.
Well, what's Vedral got? He's obviously got at least 1 year because of the rule, but where's he at eligibility?
2 more after this because he had 2 coming in, plus he's getting a free one this year.
So
So that's why they needed to make a decision.
Right,
He's got 2 more after this season through 2022, and he's not good enough to leave early, So it's not like he's going to declare at any point. It's just going to be
No worries about him fleeing for greener pastures.
right, exactly. And he's not going to transfer again. He's already been to Central Florida and Nebraska before this, so he's around for a while. They've made some program construction decisions, and they just look better coached, and he's doing it with mostly the same players except for smart transfers. So we'll take it. They'll lose this weekend, but again, 3-5. Would love to see that. Beat Illinois, beat Maryland. That's a really good first season for Schiano. And by 2022, they're going 7-5, and they get to go to Detroit 2 days after Christmas, or some other strange town, Shreveport, and to play in a bowl that's named after a local business. But we'll see. But
7 wins in 2022.
I'm going for it. I'm gonna say they'll win 7 games in 2022.
Find someone to take that bet.
Greg Schiano. I'm telling you, it's just
you could get some odds on that.
This wouldn't work with any other guy at any other school. It's just a Schiano and Rutgers sort of thing.
It's definitely confirmation that their being on the upswing is legit. That bringing Schiano back was the absolute right call for Rutgers. They thrived on the turnovers against Michigan State. They died by the turnovers against Indiana. But it's I'm not going to call it a lost year. Is definitely the wrong word for it. It's an exploration year for Rutgers, and so far they're finding gold. It's just a hell of a coaching job. I'm not going to say that Indiana's so good they had no business being even close, but it's great to see. You can take a moral victory away from that. You can take a huge moral victory away from Michigan State smoking the shit out of Michigan. They're going to get sacrificed to the gods of Ohio State this week. But boy, you can't say it enough. We heaped accolades on Schiano last week. Even in a loss, you heap accolades on him this week because he's restored. Restored Rutgers football.
Right. I mean, yeah, and I'm no longer ashamed to tell people that I almost graduated from Rutgers and still root for the team pretty seriously.
Let me tell you, around here in New Jersey, the block R's and the Rutgers gear is making its way out of the back of everybody's bureau and closet and all that stuff. Everybody is wearing their Rutgers gear, and they're very proud to wear it around here in New Jersey. So it's definite brand building that's going on with Schiano back at Rutgers.
So I'll tell you, I love the tailback, Isaiah Pacheco, out of all places, Vineland, New Jersey, which is down in South Central New Jersey. It looks like the country. It might as well be Wyoming for all you know. So I was doing some digging, and Vineland's big rival, of course, is Millville, New Jersey, my Trout's hometown. They've been playing each other since 1893. It's like the first or second oldest high school rivalry in the country. But Vineland's high school's nickname is the Fighting Clan. The Vineland Fighting Clan.
With a C.
With a C. Luckily with a C. But that's an interesting mascot for high school in this day and age.
It's a very close community.
Been to Vineland many times. There's a well-run Chick-fil-A there.
Never actually been to Vineland, but I've driven, I'm not going to call it through, around it, near it, in the vicinity of it.
It's one of those drive near sort of towns rather than drive in. So, but yeah, Pacheco was on the team the last 2 years, and now all of a sudden he looks like, he's as good for Rutgers as Stevie Scott is for Indiana. But, it's just different coaches is the only difference. So we shall see.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they can keep it a game for a quarter or longer against the Buckeyes. They were just clearly probably the favorite.
Not bloody likely.
National championship. We can see why they wanted to play the season so badly.
Yep.
With the team that they have. All right. But then before we sign off here, let's talk about the big game of the weekend. Fighting Irish on Clemson Tigers. No Trevor Lawrence. Can't remember what's the quarterback's name.
Oh man, it's a tough one. It is a tough one.
Ungalalea, I think.
Yeah,
so I heard 25 different pronunciations of this name by 25 professional broadcasters. Can someone?
No disrespect intended. What's to the quarterback? one hell of a player, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they're great.
Jack,
Came storming back last week.
if Notre Dame's ever going to do it, this has got to be the weekend.
It is. Ugalele, I don't know.
Yugoslavia.
Clemson quarterback. Let's
The
just call him.
Clemson, the freshman, the new Clemson quarterback, looked very good. And he's got a lot of talent around him. And you said it. If the Irish were ever going to be, not necessarily the year, if it were ever the game, this has got to be the game. I think that Clark Lee, the Notre Dame defensive coordinator, is headed for bigger and better things. This defense has been very good the past couple years, and I think has made the leap to great. Notre Dame is 29-3 in their last 32 games. They've won 12 straight, and they've won 26 straight at home. So, they have been, other than their performances in the national semifinals or the national title game in 2012, Brian Kelly, has gotten them back to elite program status, which is hard to do when you're trying to get 18-year-old teenagers to come to a Catholic school in South Bend, Indiana. And I think that Notre Dame's going to win this game. And I think they're going to win because Trevor Lawrence isn't going to play and Notre Dame's defense is that good. But what's going to happen is they're going to end up meeting again in the ACC title game with Trevor Lawrence. And that time Clemson's going to win. And then we'll let the committee figure out who belongs in the playoffs. But I do think that Notre Dame, it's been a long time. The last time Notre Dame won a matchup of top 5 teams in South Bend was the original 90s game of the century in 1993 against Florida State, where Notre Dame famously beat Charlie Ward 31-24 and then went out the next week and lost at the buzzer on a field goal by a below 500 Boston College squad. Do you know who Notre Dame plays next weekend, by the way? Boston College. Mm-hmm. So the cheeky schedulers of the ACC put that. Clemson trying to set the record for most consecutive ACC wins in history with a win. They tie the record of Florida State back when Florida State joined the conference. So it's a big game. Though, Notre Dame has some fans there, including some students. I do think being at home will make a bit of difference for Notre Dame, especially with a freshman quarterback coming from Clemson. I just feel like they're due. They've been good for a long time. This is not a playoff game. I feel like they play tight. They always come out tight, nervous. They give up points right away in playoff games. I think they can win this. I think it's going to be close. I think there's going to be a middle amount of points scored. I don't think it's going to be a shootout nor a pitcher's duel. But I think Notre Dame wins this matchup, but I expect to see them play again this year.
A massive matchup. I'm really excited to watch this game. It sucks that Trevor Lawrence is out, but I think the quarterback for Clemson quarterback, as we're calling him, played well, made a nice comeback last week against BC. This is going to be highly entertaining. One of the must-watches for this early part of the season.
The rare night game in South Bend. Only started playing night games 10 years ago.
All the prestige and prim and proper treatment from the NBC home team broadcast that the Domers get. I'm not as optimistic. Well, look, I'm not going to say optimistic because I'm certainly no fan of Notre Dame. I don't know that Notre Dame can pull this out. They can, but I don't know if they will. But I'm really excited to watch this game. It's going to be great.
Yeah, 7:30 Saturday night. We all know where we're going to be. Clemson favored by 5.5. I think Fighting Irish take it outright. Bet Notre Dame on the money line.
It came down too. Started at 6.5 and came down. So
I think just too many injuries.
Your family loyalties to Notre Dame, I think, are strongly coloring your view of this situation. It's Clemson we're talking about.
I understand.
But
if Trevor,
no Trevor Lawrence, so many guys out. I mean, it's not. But that's the thing. It's not really Clemson,
right? And this is not a playoff game.
If Trevor Lawrence is playing, Notre Dame has no shot. But I think with all the injuries on defense, giving up all those points to Boston College last week and then losing more guys, I just think Notre Dame can win this one. But I agree with Jack's analysis.
Clemson
Dame will roll back.
Notre Dame in the right, exactly. If Lawrence is back, Notre Dame gets rolled and then somehow misses out on the playoffs.
Notre Dame assured of an Ohio State Clemson national championship game.
Notre Dame runs the ball really well, and they stop the run really well. If you're ever gonna have a chance, this is the way you do it. So It's going to be exciting. Honestly, it's a birthday week for me. 2020 has been a tough year for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. If I'm ever going to get one lucky break for anybody having this year, for all sorts of reasons. Come on, whoever's watching up there, you know what they say.
Hey,
God
you guys
might
definitely
not
got
care.
God on your side.
Hey, Jesus might not care about Notre Dame, but his mother does. So let's get a win over. Let's get a win over the hated Clemson Tigers.
All right, boys. That's it for this week's show. Any special shout outs? Anybody important die this week we need to recognize?
It's a very grim note to close on.
I feel
I
like
can't
we've
think
been
of
on a
anybody off
stretch
the
here
top of
for
my
like
head.
5 shows in a row where some famous sports figure has died. We make it a week without anybody. All right, that's good to know.
I can't think anybody off the top of my head. No disrespect to if you did die and we're just forgetting to mention you. I apologize for not remembering.
I'd like to.
I'll give a shout out to. I did it last week when it was almost on the cusp of happening. There were some dicey moments there at the end of the week on Friday. Was it going to happen? Was it not going to happen? Was Bill de Blasio going to step in the way and throw the dream away for the Mets fans? Congratulations to Uncle Stevie for getting approved. He hasn't closed on the deal yet, but apparently they're going to close within the week from what I understand, reading the reports. He's going to get aggressive right away. Love what I'm reading about what Uncle Stevie's going to do to the Mets. Can't wait to see what the future of this team looks like. Haven't been this excited to be a Mets fan in a very, very long time. Just great stuff going on with the Mets right now.
Nice.
Yeah, I think let's do a hot stove show in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Make all our predictions.
Hopefully they start signing some free agents by then, because the free agency started on Sunday and it's been more about who's getting cut rather than who's actually getting picked up.
I got 2 quick fun shout outs, both East Coast biased, neither necessarily sports related. One, only one man or only one human in history has now had a top 5 album. And think about this, 6 different decades. Bruce Springsteen, 6 different decades he's done that. And happy birthday, we're taping today on November 4th, to Ralph Macchio, to Long Island native, met Ralph Macchio, and a skinny Italian kid from Newark, New Jersey, who moved out to Reseda and won himself a karate championship. So happy birthday to my boy Ralph Macchio.
Star of beer league, man. Come on.
And so
forget Karate Kid, beer league.
Do you want to talk about? So I know the writer director of Beer League, and my fraternity brother's in that movie. So Frank,
we did. I'd actually like to amend we did Dream Guests, I believe, first show.
Are you going Artie?
I think so.
You going Artie Lang?
Are you gonna say Artie?
That true. That is honestly. It may not be number 1. I'd have to think long and hard. I think we all kind of gave off the cuff, kind of zany answers. But if we're talking true, like
Anybody
number 1 guess, I don't know that he'd get the top spot for me, but Artie Lang absolutely in the conversation. I would sit down and talk to that man for hours.
So quick ECB story. So while I was in a fraternity at Rutgers, my fraternity brother was Christian Sebastiano. He was actually my roommate's big brother. And Christian and I are friends. Christian's older brother, Frank Sebastiano, was a writer for SNL, and that's how he got into the comedy world. And his best friends, he wrote Dirty Work with Artie Lang.
The legendary Dirty Work.
So I got criminally underrated Dirty Work.
So I got to walk the red carpet for that movie in New York, and then I got to see SNL one year from the audience.
One of the all-time great scenes with Don Rickles.
Yes.
Yeah.
When he's grilling them. When they're all lined up.
So
yeah.
He did write Beer League as well, and one of the guys on the evil tire place team who stands there and plays second base is Christian Sebastiano, my fraternity brother. So,
if you're for those Stern fan shows out there, we're all worried about Artie. He's disappeared off the face of the earth again.
Yes.
He was doing his podcast for a while. Hopefully, he's just hiding during COVID. Artie, we missed you. Come back, man. We all love you.
If you're in Hoboken, come on, call somebody, buddy.
He hasn't gotten arrested so far, so we'll see what happens. Every time he seems to get right in trouble, he gets arrested, lickety split. So he's staying out of trouble. So maybe he's just hiding out.
Never was the same when Artie left.
All right. Well, in 2 weeks, let's do best East Coast sports movies, and we'll just discuss Beer League because I could talk about it for forever. Gravy fries. Yeah, I'll have some gravy fries too.
Yeah. All right. Is that the second shout out?
Yeah, that was. Ralph
Yeah.
Macchio and Springsteen, 6 decades. Those are the shout outs.
All right.
Strong Jersey finish there for
They-
the
East Coast
ECV
Pirates.
tonight.
All right. That's it for another edition of our wonderful podcast. Thanks for watching. Like our video, subscribe to our page. We'll be back next week with another edition of East Coast Bias.
Go Irish.